Antinatalism is the idea that we should not have children because life is suffering and we cannot guarantee our children will live good lives, and also because we can't ask their consent to be born into this world. There is also another related philosophy called ephilism. Ephil is the word life spelled backwards. Ephilism extends antinatalism to all conscious living beings. I think many antinatalists just seek to reduce their own suffering footprint on Earth by not having children. This is an achievable goal in my opinion, but not too ambitious. There are, however, others with bigger goals, like ending all human suffering, and some ethicists want to end the suffering of every conscious organism. Personally, I would consider myself an antinatalist, and generally I agree with their philosophy, but I don't think antinatalism will end human suffering. These more ambitious goals are problematic for a few reasons, which I will get into in this video. First of all, there is the problem of consent. Antinatalists hold consent in very high regard. It is one of the reasons why people become antinatalists. Violating consent would therefore be a moral dilemma, because not everyone will agree with the antinatalist philosophy. Humans are not entirely rational or logical beings. It is arguable that not everyone will be convinced that antinatalism is correct or desirable. Some might disagree with antinatalism for religious reasons, and you won't be able to convince them with logic. Others might have questionable morals and would possibly not care if they inflict suffering on people, including their own offspring. Then some people are just not smart enough to grasp the concept of antinatalism. But it could actually get much worse. There was a Christian Gnostic sect called the Cathars in southern Europe in the Middle Ages who were antinatalists. They eventually died off and were heavily persecuted by the Catholic Church. I don't think it's unrealistic that history could repeat itself if antinatalism were to become popular once again. For example, so-called child-free propaganda is already illegal in Russia. There would likely be some resistance from natalists if they felt threatened. Secondly, hypothetically, in a somewhat idealistic situation, even if 99% of humanity adopted antinatalist views and stopped having children, with the current global population, around 80 million people would still remain and continue reproducing. This is more than enough genetic diversity to repopulate the planet after a number of centuries. Then these irrational people with questionable morals would inherit the Earth. I'm not sure that this is good for reducing overall human suffering in the long term. But let's say, even if humanity was entirely sterilized and died off, there would still be billions of other conscious living beings on the planet. They would continue the cycle of life and suffering, and after some millions of years, perhaps another human-like species would emerge, and we would effectively be back at square one. Ethicists have a hypothetical concept called the big red button, whereby they would eradicate all life in the universe by pressing it. Some suggest this could be accomplished by developing non-conscious killer robots that go out into space and sterilize entire planets. At this point, humans would have thrown their morals out of the window and simply began imposing their will on others without consent. But there are some problems with this, other than the obvious moral ones. First of all, we don't know for sure if life will eventually find a way to defeat or avoid these sterilizing killer robots. Life adapts to changing circumstances, which may allow it to flourish and evolve to the point of consciousness once again. Then it is also possible that these robots may break down due to unforeseen circumstances, and many planets could therefore be spared from destruction. Is it really realistic to think that these robots could survive for millions or billions of years while traveling huge distances through space? Them being non-conscious might also be a problem in terms of solving novel problems that the original designers did not foresee. We have to also ask, why haven't killer robots come to Earth already? Surely this idea isn't unique only to humans on Earth if beings on other planets live in similar environments with the same laws of physics. We've been here for billions of years, but nothing has come to destroy us, not yet anyway. Another thing to consider is the nature of the universe itself. It is quite possible that the universe is cyclical. In that case, even if the most ideal goal, such as the big red button, was achieved, then we would eventually be back here pondering these questions again after some billions or trillions of years. That would render the attempt of eradicating life somewhat futile. Basically, I think antinatalism is valid from a personal moral perspective. It is something we can follow in order to reduce our own contribution to the suffering happening on this planet. We can even talk to others about this philosophy, and those who will listen might understand, agree, and adopt some of these ideas. But I think the more ambitious goal of ending all suffering is a fantasy that is not realistically achievable. Trying to do this might also backfire and create more suffering, as we have seen happen with many other extremist ideologies that are not rooted in reality. That said, according to what we know about science, in some billions of years, the sun itself will eventually become a red giant and destroy all life on Earth. So the goal of antinatalism will naturally be accomplished given enough time, without us doing anything. Remember to like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts about antinatalism. Do you agree or disagree? See you in the next video. Okay, thanks, bye.